worksheet 1-7. Let's go through some of these problems together. Some of the problems use complementary angles, like this one. Notice the box, so that one's 90. And if that angle is 90, then what about the one next to it? Is it also going to be 90? Yeah, remember how we just talked about linear pairs and how they add up to 180? So if this angle is 90 and this is a straight line, that means that angle has to be 90, because 90 plus 90 is 180. Or that angle plus that angle adds up to 180, so they're both 90. And that angle plus this whole angle here add up to 180 because it's a straight line, so those both have to be 90. So that means that these two angles are 90. They're complementary. Okay? Then there's this picture. We just learned about this one. What do we know about these two angles? They're supplementary. What does that mean? They add up to 180, right? So we have to use that information to solve that problem. Meanwhile, this problem gives us that these add up to 120, so that doesn't really apply to the stuff we were just learning. This just allows us to practice some algebra. And these two add up to 70. So these two problems are just allowing us to practice the angle addition postulate like we've been during the last few days. Just where one angle plus the other angle equals the total angle, which in this case is 70. Okay? So let's go through each of these problems quickly and set up some algebra and solve them. So, like I said, AMC is 70. That's the whole entire angle. So this little angle plus that little angle add up to 70. So to set up the problem, we write down the algebra. Angle y plus angle 3y plus 10 equals 70. And now we have a simple algebra problem to solve where we add the y's together and we subtract the 10 to the other side, so that y ends up equaling 60 divided by 4, which is, anyone know that one? $60 divided by 4? 15. Okay, now the questions are just saying find the values of the variables. That's all we have to do. We don't have to plug it back in on this problem. But if we really wanted to, we could realize that since y is 15, that means that little angle right there is 15 degrees. And this one would be 3 times 15 plus 10, right? If we needed to do that. Okay, next one. What did we just get done saying about these two angles? They are complementary. You don't have to write that down, but I'm just going to write it down to kind of get it in your heads. The more you see it, the more you hear it, the more you'll remember it. Complementary add up to 90. So we're going to take these two angles. 4x is one of the angles, plus x is the other angle, and together they add up to 90. So 5x equals 90, so divide both sides by 5. Got it? I don't want to do all the work for you. What is it? Good job. Okay, what about on the next problem? Are you guys getting the hang of these? Do you need me to keep going? Or do you get them? Like, let me just quickly set these up and then you guys can do the algebra. So this one's this angle plus this angle, so 4y plus 3y plus 15 equals 120. Because the entire angle POR is 120. So that angle plus that angle equals 120. And then you solve it. And then the last one, notice how they don't give us a number. We already talked about this one. What do they add up to? They add up to 180. So even though they don't give us that number, we can figure it out and solve it. So we're going to combine the x's. X plus 2x is 3x. And then combine the numbers. 25 plus 20 is 45. And then move the 45 over to the other side, subtract it over, divide by the 3, right? I keep reiterating this algebra because I know some of you are really still struggling with algebra. Okay, next. Number 5 is a different situation. What kind of angles do we have in number 5? We learned about these today. They are called vertical angles. And what's the important detail about vertical angles that tells us how to solve this particular problem? What's the detail about vertical angles that we learned? you guys, it's the most important thing about vertical angles. Look at your notes. Raise your hands. Melanie. They are congruent. Okay, so that means this angle equals this angle. Do we know what they add up to? No, there's no numbers involved. We don't know what they add up to, and we don't really care, because all we care about is that they're vertical angles, so they are congruent. So all we have to do to solve this problem is 3x minus 3 equals 2x plus 8. And then we solve the algebra. Let's do this one together. So subtract the 2x, that gives us x. Add the 3, so that gives us 11. So x must equal 11. See how you have to think through these? It doesn't automatically tell you what to do. You've got to use the properties we learned today and use them to help solve the problem. Number 6 is confusing because we've got an x and a y to solve for. We can't solve x and y at the same time, so we have to find something that involves either just x or just y. There's two things going on here. We have a set of vertical angles, and we also have a set of adjacent angles that form a linear pair. What do you want to do first? Do you want to work with the vertical angles first or the linear pair first? Okay, the only thing I heard was DJ, and that's because he's sitting near me. So he said vertical. So vertical angles are equal. So I'm going to go 5x equals 30. So then I solve for x. What's 30 divided by 5? Good job. Okay, now let's do the adjacent angles. What do these two angles add up to? These two angles add up to 180. So therefore we can go y plus 30 equals 180. And then we can subtract the 30 from the 180 and figure out that the answer is 150. Now I made that a little bit complicated by using algebra. Is that really something you could quickly do in your head? Oh, there's a 30. They add up to 180. 180 minus 30, 150. Right? I kind of did it a long way. All right. Next one. Number 7. This one's a little bit harder. We've got vertical angles, but there's an x and a y, so we can't solve that one yet. And then we have adjacent angles, but these two there's an x and a y, so we can't solve it that way. But if we do these two adjacent angles, what do we have? Just x's. So we can solve that. So we're going to start by doing 5x plus 17x plus 4 equals 180. Solve for x. And then we plug the x back in to here, right here. Find this answer. And then y will be equal to that. Okay, you guys go ahead and finish that one. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Go.